This response is to a video of a YouTuber that I actually like. I don't know him personally, but I like his content, so as far as I know his content. So there's a few things I noticed about this video, and I just want to talk about it. This guy's channel is called Cathlicontrast, and in this video he talks about TJ, also known as TheAmazingAtheist. And I think something isn't quite right with his response. Let's see this, for example.
The question might sound insulting, and I can see how it would be, but it's not really intended that way.
You know how when somebody says, I'm not racist, but, or I'm not sexist, but, and then they say something that's really racist or sexist? This is going to be similar.
Does anyone really believe this shit?
The problem with the Christian religion is the Bible is a fairy tale book. Many people do not understand what a fairy tale is. Let me explain it shortly. If I take, for example, the fairy tale book written by the Brothers Grimm that Americans might know under the Tales of Mother Goose, which are not the same. Even the Tales of Mother Goose are a different interpretation of the Brother Grimm stories. If a science-orientated person would read it through, this person might find a lot of things that are troubling to what we view as reality. Like in these fairy tales, the existence of giants and talking wolves and other creatures is just common sense, because many people back then actually believed in these creatures. But if you see it as a metaphor, you understand what the purpose of these creatures is within the story. What the king symbolizes, what the princess symbolizes, what the prince symbolizes, what the creatures symbolize. They usually have a deeper meaning to themselves. That's what we like so much about fairy tales, and why many people still tell their children fairy tales, because usually they end with a moral. They tell you something that you might only understand, or that a child might only understand, through a story that is not using the, you could say, boring or simple terms of reality. It's using extremes, like giants usually represent adults or parents, people that have authority. Children do not draw a real line between fairy tale and reality. And that's what is so brilliant about fairy tales. But the Bible is taken too seriously, because it's a religion. The problem with many of these stories is they don't have a good moral in the end. Not all of them. The Bible contradicts itself, what is righteous behavior, even within the Old Testament. And like I said, many people who don't really want to follow the New Testament just take the Old Testament and quote it in order to justify their behavior.
Okay, so I wanted to see what a candid Christian response to this video would be from somebody who's never seen The Amazing Atheist before. So I took the end of the video where he repeats the question in a more fleshed out form and showed it to my Bible study group.
So I'd like to ask my question to both the formerly religious and the currently religious. Do you actually believe the shit you say when it comes to religion? And how do you maintain that belief in the total absence of any evidence, and despite the fact that the stuff you believe is clearly ridiculous? I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace the out! Ha ha ha!
100,000 views.
Yes.
For that?
Isn't that horrible?
For that.
Did you want to say something?
I'm going to entrust you to his heart. And when you are Catholic, I will rejoice dining at the wedding feast of the Lamb with you. God bless you, good sir.
I'm sorry, but this is not a proper response. Let me give you another example. I, for myself, believe in Santa Claus. If you would ask me, why do you believe in Santa Claus? The idea is completely ridiculous. I would not respond with, have a Merry Christmas. Because this is actually what your Bible study group did. You know, the Amazing Atheist asked the more or less serious question, and their response is, you know, I entrust you to Jesus. This is like you asking me, why do you believe in Santa Claus, and I'm just saying, Merry Christmas. What? That's not a response.
Okay, making hackneyed summaries of the other side's position is something that atheists do to Christians and Christians do to atheists all the time.
Sorry, but I have a little problem with this picture. Can we see it again, please? Thank you. You see, on the left side, there is the argument the atheist makes, and on the right side, there's the argument that the theist makes. And I think I stopped, I paused the video and read both of them, and I still think, and I'm not an atheist, I don't get tired to say that I'm not an atheist, I'm a philosopher, but I think the left one makes more sense. Because the half of the right one is wrong. Nobody claims that. Let me read it for you. The belief that there was nothing and nothing happened to nothing and then nothing magically exposed for no reason, creating everything and then a bunch of everything magically rearranged itself for no reason whatsoever into self-replicating bytes which then turned into dinosaurs. Well, at first, the belief that there was nothing and nothing happened to nothing, and then nothing magically exploded for no reason. Yeah, that is actually a little bit fishy about science. Scientists don't know the answer yet. But the Big Bang makes sense if you know what the theory is. Just Google it, I'm not explaining it now. The other thing, creating everything and then a bunch of everything magically rearranged itself for no reason. No, that's not true. The reason was that things work under the laws of physics. Like gravity is a law of physics. Or, you know, Newton's laws of motion. All these things, I could name more, but just Google physics, damn it. Okay, these things happen. You know, you can actually have a debate about how physics came to be, how the laws of physics came to be. You know, if there was an intention behind creating them and so on and so forth. But it's not like that the laws of physics didn't exist or something. No. The creation of life, biogenesis, people believe that it has to do with how things act under the laws of physics. This is nothing magical and nothing that happens for no reason. Physics happen because it's you could say it's the nature of stuff to act according to the laws of physics. It goes on with into self-replicating bits which then turned into dinosaurs. Makes perfect sense. Yeah, no. Life didn't create itself so easy. Actually, we don't know what created life. We have an idea about how our cell structure came to be, but until this very point, no scientist can actually explain how life began or what life even is. What makes a cell move? You can explain the physics behind that, but you cannot explain what makes something alive. You cannot explain that. We cannot explain that with science yet. And the dinosaurs came billions of years later, so it implies that, you know, life turned directly into dinosaurs, and that's bullshit. Sorry. It's just like, even if a creationist tries to explain something with an ironic tone to it, he still explains it like it's creationism. He doesn't understand it.
I mean, if I just peppered casual conversations with people like, yeah, by the way, I've seen dragons.
Yeah, I've actually ridden a dragon before. You know, I jumped on his back and I rode him to the moon. And on the moon, I met all these moon women and I f***ed them and had little moon babies. And I actually lived on the moon for 20 years, but I got bored, so I came back to Earth. People would be like, this guy is a f***ing lunatic.
Okay, so at this point we've abandoned argumentative discourse. This is just comedy for atheists. You're not even touching on any sort of philosophical or evidential arguments for or against the existence of miracles or any sort of justification of a materialist worldview.
Of course he doesn't, because this is not what he wants to explain with this video. I could make a philosophical video about... I actually made a philosophical video about why God cannot exist. Well, why the God of the Christians is not what you think it is, because the Old Testament and what Jesus says are contradicting each other in such a heavy way that it's not possible. But that's, like I said, it's a philosophical issue. And no, TJ is an atheist. He has a, you could say, materialistic worldview, and you can think about that whatever you want. I, for myself, think materialism as we have it right now is totally wrong and stupid. But he is not, in this video, he's not explaining himself. He's just asking the question, do you really believe in this? Well, because you have to admit it sounds totally ridiculous. And you have to explain, do you believe in this? Do you accept it as a fairy tale, or you really believe these things really happen and you have to draw your moral conclusions from it, otherwise you go to hell? And you're not answering this question. You don't answering his question. You're just saying, you know, take me seriously, bro. Yeah, but I believe that you really believe it. But do you really take this seriously? Because TJ makes a valid point here. It's really ridiculous. So please answer that question.
Obviously, Christians still quote parts of the Old Testament like the Ten Commandments, so how do you know which parts of the Old Testament are relevant? It depends on if it's a universal moral law, a culture-specific law, or a culture-specific tradition.
Yeah, that's the problem. You see, for example, in the Old Testament, breaking one of the Ten Commandments means you should to be put to death. Like, if you work on the Sabbath day, people should kill you. If you steal something, even if you starve if you don't do it, people should kill you. And that's a problem. At first, these rules aren't very precisely. They're usually very vague on when something is allowed and when something is not allowed. Even when they are precise, they're usually wrong. And this is why I think the Old Testament should not be part of Christianity as it is told in churches. Because it's not. Just keep Christianity and Jewish faith apart from each other. These are two completely different things. I know Jesus referred to parts of the Jewish faith when he explained why he's doing things or why he thinks some things are righteous, but it's not like you actually need the whole Old Testament to understand Jesus's philosophy. You don't, actually. A few side notes here and there for explanation for the Jewish faith would be enough, and you would understand it. And many people are just not that educated. Like, you say, you must see what it is, you know, is it a tradition or is it a moral law, whatever. Yeah, people don't know that. They open the Bible and they read it and they have no education about Jewish faith whatsoever or about Jewish culture or history, and they just think this book is actually a history book, but it's not. It's a fairy tale book. And that's how are people supposed to tell this apart? You had to teach the Bible among science, and that is not possible. You either clear the Christian faith, the Christian Bible from the Old Testament, you take away the Old Testament, or you can't create a Christian religion that is actually Christian. Okay? because people will always search for things that are anti-Jesus in the Old Testament, and they will find things that are anti-Jesus messages.
Jesus Christ himself said that you should give up all your earthly possessions to the poor and just wander the land, spreading his word. But modern Christians don't do that.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure what verses you're referring to here. I think you're either referring to Matthew 19:21, which was directed towards one specific man, or Luke 14:33, which was referring to Jesus' disciples. Neither of those verses was referring to every Christian across every culture and every context. Clearly, most Christians don't give away all their possessions and money, and that's under the assumption that they're using those things to provide for their families. But you will see some Christians giving away what they have and taking vows of poverty, like priests, monks, nuns.
Okay, now you are misrepresenting Christianity. I read the stuff that TJ is talking about, and yes, Jesus is even more left than Karl Marx is. He is so left, he says you should give up everything you don't need to live, or your family don't need to live, everything you should give away. And if you see someone in need, you should even give away what you still have left. Selflessness was kind of Jesus' trademark. Sorry. He really said to everyone, it's right that you shouldn't wander the land and spread the message of Jesus. This is actually only for his disciples. That's right. But giving away everything you don't need in order to survive. And if you see someone in need, you should even give away that too. That is what Jesus said.
Ich bin ein Tagträumer, ein Zeitverschwender, Faulenzender, Daumendreher. Bin ein Partykläscher, Urvater, Phrasendrescher, ahnungsloser Besserwisser.